Mabuhay everyone! So I am Renalyn Basalonia, and today I will be discussing about the evidences supporting the input hypothesis and the affective filter hypothesis. Okay, so now first we have the evidences supporting the input hypothesis. So here are the briefly reviewed previously published evidences supporting the input hypothesis. So first, people speak to children acquiring first languages in special ways. So meaning when people talk to children during their first language acquisition, they tend to speak in a repetitive manner or with the use of a much more simpler words. So that is for them to understand the word easily, and also for a better comprehensible input. Just like for example, a parent says, "Doggy eat," "Doggy hungry." So this input helped the child understand words before speaking. Second, people speak to Alto learners in special ways. Just like for example, a teacher says, "Please open your notebook," instead of, "Could everyone kindly take out their notebook?" So in here, when a student is still learning their second language, the teacher is using a much more simpler words or sentence and phrases rather than using complicated words, and that is also a one of the special ways, especially for just like the same some first language, for a better comprehensible input and for them to understand the word first before speaking. Next is the interlanguage talk. So, interlanguage talk is helpful because if you are speaking with someone, even though sometimes there are lapses or you are speaking with wrong grammar, it is really helpful man gyapon since you are exposed to that language itself and you are able to learn it. Next, learners often go through initial silent period. So there are some students who are quiet in class, but that silent period meaning that they are quiet in class but they are silently learning and having this comprehensible input. So they are understanding each word, and then afterwards they tend to speak and to use these words. So they are first understanding it before trying to speak it or to use it. Next is the comparative success of younger and older learners. So din here, according to Krashen, Long, and Scarcella, they believe that younger children are the most nga nakalga-learn sang second language. That is because they have this environment wherein they are much more exposed sa language nga ina. If you are learning, and also we can really tell that, example, subong sa atong panahon, most of the children are really expert in speaking English. That is because they are exposed to these TV shows, to these videos on YouTube. They are exposed, and also ilang mga parents are talking to them using in English or in any languages, and that really improves their language acquisition rather than learners nga rather than sa mga older learners where nga wala agad sila sa masyadong background sa language nga na, and they are still really going to struggle in learning second language. Next, the more comprehensible input is the greater the elder proficiency. Okay, so the more that you are exposed to the language itself or to the comprehensible input, the more that you understand it is, the more that you are most likely to acquire and to learn it. Next is kabalistkaran. If you lacked the comprehensible input is, of course, there is a delay and also lapses in your language acquisition. That's why being exposed to the language itself is really important, because if you are not, that will just slow your acquisition or your language acquisition. Next, reading provides comprehensible input. Of course, diba? Sometimes if we can really learn a lot from reading. And if you read a lot, then you will gain a lot of comprehensible input. And then afterwards, of course, if you are going to write something or to speak, you are gonna, that comprehensible input is useful. Next, immersion teaching is successful. Okay, when we talk about immersion teaching, it is also about simulation, wherein you are exposed to that language through experience. Just like for example, diri sa aton siniso, we are challenged to speak in English inside or even outside the campus, and that help us for a better comprehensible input because we learn from each other. And through simulation, a lot of comprehensible input is a lot of words, or more effective for a language to be acquired. Bilingual programs succeed to the extent they provide comprehensible input. So bilingual programs. So we are familiar with this during high school, because most of the subjects are being taught in English. It is written in English. So what the teacher does is, the teacher translates the words in simple words, so that the children can understand and think that ay amo nagali ang meaning sang word nga na. And that really helps for a better comprehensible input, because they get familiarized with the word and also the translation or the meaning of the word, and that is already a comprehensible input. And that's it for the evidences. Now let us proceed to the affective filter hypothesis. So when we talk about the affective filter hypothesis, it states how affective factors correlated to second language acquisition process. So how does our emotions affect how we learn and acquire our second language? So this hypothesis argues that a learner requires an environment where they feel safe and comfortable to take risks necessary to learn language. Okay, according to Krashen, affective filter hypothesis is our emotional state that acts as a filter that facilitates a language acquisition, or it affects our receptiveness to comprehensible input. So it helps us to learn, and it also it affects our receptiveness on how we learn, or how comprehensible input enters our brain, and how we acquired that language. Okay, so according to Gonzalez, there is research in neuroscience that supports Krashen's theory about stress that affects thinking and learning. Okay, so how does stress affect our learning? Mapansin man natin nga sometimes, diba, if we are too stressed, then ma-feel natin nga wala kitang gana magtuon. And that is also one of our emotions that affect our affective filter, because mabalaan na natin adara karon nga ginasupport ni siya. Okay, so the affective filter hypothesis has 3 categories variables that play a role in second language acquisition. So we have first we have the motivation. So when we talk about motivation, it is something that drives us from learning or acquiring language. So this pushes us, it pushes us to do something, because we have the goal that push us to do it. Just like for example, you are fond of watching animes, So what you did is are you learn how to write and how to write, read, and speak Japanese, so that later on you can be able to watch anime without reading the subtitles. So that is an example of motivation. So you are motivated to learn that language for that specific goal of yours. Next is our self-confidence. So when we talk about self-confidence, it is when you believe that you can do something. Just like for example, you are in a competition and the teacher praises you, even though nga may mga lapses and there may mga mistakes nga nahimo, the teacher corrected it, and then you still confident enough to write again because you believe that you can do it. You believe that you can do it. You believe that you can improve, and that is self-confidence. That is also. Next, we have anxiety. So, ang anxiety na kanina, as mentioned in the research in neuroscience, is when you feel anxious or too stressed in something. So, it really affects how we learn our second language acquisition. So, why? Why does it affect how we learn language? That is because ang atong affective filter, if nakita ninyo kagina, dili mabala naton. Okay. If our affective filter is high, then the feeling of anxiety, stress, self-doubt, and etc. will lower the language acquisition. So if we are feeling stressed, or we have this anxiety, or we have this negative emotions on us, then the higher our affective hypothesis is. Then the meaning of that is also the lower that we the lower our language acquisition it is, because it blocks our comprehensible input. Because we think just think or just imagine this filter as a gate in our brain, and that gate filters out the comprehensible input. So if our affective filter is high, then how can that comprehensible input enter our brain and become this language that we acquire? So amo na siya ang sa inyong if you have the higher filter. Next is in opposition, we have the affective filter that is low. So when it is low, the feeling of safety is high. The language acquisition will be more likely to be effective. So here if we have this positive emotions in us or on us, then our affective filter is lowered, meaning learning and acquiring language is effective because the comprehensible input can enter effectively into our brain. So that is our affective filter hypothesis. And also, the research shows that when students find the material appealing, their motivation increases, which subsequently lowers their affective filter. So if they are interested to something, if they are motivated to do something, then the more effective the language acquisition is, because it lowers our affective filter. That's why it is really important that on our future classrooms we have this positive and safe environment for our students. So and that's all in summary. Krashen's input hypothesis says learning happens through comprehensible input, or language that is easy to understand but still help learners grow. The affective filter hypothesis adds that emotions like motivation, confidence, and anxiety affect how well students learn. When learners feel relaxed and motivated, they learn better. But when they feel nervous or stressed, learning becomes harder. And that's all for my report. Thank you guys for listening. And these are the references I used in my report. Thank you guys.